History is full of bitter rivalries. Athens versus Sparta, Batman versus the Joker, Big Mac versus the Whopper. Rivalries so contentious, the world wasn't big enough to contain the two of them. Tonight we have one such rivalry, Knob Creek versus Elijah Craig, two of the giants among small batch bourbons. In a lot of ways, these whiskeys are very similar. They're both straight bourbon whiskeys, aged in new charred oak barrels with no artificial coloring or other additives. They both use a low rye grain recipe, so they're made mostly with corn, plus some rye for flavoring and a little barley thrown in there as well. They're made by arguably the world's two largest bourbon producers in the world, Knob Creek by Jim Beam and Elijah Craig by Heaven Hill. The distilleries aren't very far apart either. They're only about a 30-minute drive from one another. And when you taste them side by side, you can tell how evenly matched they are. They both have those classic bourbon notes, of course, like caramel and sour cherry. And when you taste them, you might find that the Knob Creek is a little bit richer and more buttery, with slightly more sour fruit and a little chocolate. However, the Elijah Craig can come across as meatier, akin to having a good steak, and has some added ginger and buttered popcorn. Tasting them side by side, I did my best to figure out which of them was the better bourbon, but struggled greatly, without success, to determine which of them was truly superior. But only one of them can come out on top, because after all, we know the tiny state of Kentucky isn't big enough for two bourbon distilleries. So one of them has to be the winner, and the other must be the loser. As evenly matched as these two bourbons are, how can we tell which one is the champion, and which one will be vanquished, never to be heard from again? You think a blind tasting would help? No, Chonk. I've told you many times, a blind tasting wouldn't tell us anything. Besides, we're way past that now. The negotiations have failed. No, we're left with only one way to settle this, and that is through brutal hand-to-hand combat, with nothing held back. The bourbons will now choose their champions to fight for them.
Johnny Cage.
Elijah Craig chooses Johnny Cage.
Liu Kang.
And Knob Creek chooses Liu Kang. The fighters are now ready for battle. Knob Creek unleashes a volley of fireballs and takes down Elijah Craig with a flying kick. Elijah Craig sends him soaring through the air with a devastating uppercut. Knob Creek lands another flying kick, but Craig counters with a low blow. But a final sweep brings Elijah Craig to the ground, and Knob Creek takes round one. Elijah Craig kicks Knob Creek right in the synthetic cork, but Knob Creek grabs Craig and hurls him to the ground. Craig then punches Knob Creek right in the knob. Elijah Craig's massive uppercut sends Knob Creek soaring through the air. A final energy ball knocks Knob Creek out, and Elijah Craig evens the score after round 2. The final round begins. Knob Creek absorbs a kick to the cork, but counters with a barrage of fireballs, then grabs Elijah Craig and hurls him. Ooh! Another punch directly in the knob! A shadow kick and a jump kick bring Knob Creek to the edge. The match is over! Oh! Unbelievable! Elijah Craig has punched Knob Creek's synthetic cork completely out of the bottle, sending it hurtling through the air as 9-year-old bourbon sprays out of Knob Creek's neck opening. The fill line goes down to 0 as the bottle topples over and all Knob Creek's bourbon drains out onto the floor of the arena. This is a tragic end for the once mighty small batch bourbon. Well, I don't think this is going to be the result most people expected from this matchup. I assume most of you would have given the advantage to Knob Creek with its slightly higher ABV and clear 9-year-old age statement, though probably many would see this as a match that could have easily gone either way. And I would have expected a synthetic cork to remain in Knob Creek's bottle more securely than a natural one would, but evidently that isn't the case, since it could be knocked out with a single uppercut. And I imagine most of you would be shocked, maybe even disgusted, to witness Elijah Craig's use of dirty fighting tactics to gain the advantage. Groin punching is never considered an honorable fighting style in my experience. But we already know this is a bourbon that has refused to disclose its real age for years, so maybe we should take that as a sign of its continuing moral decay. I guess we can't count on this bourbon to be above those devious tactics anymore. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Knob Creek demanded a rematch after the outcome of tonight's fight. I wouldn't blame them if they did. For now, though, the results stand, even if that leaves a bad taste in the mouths of many of us. Very disappointing. Well, good night, everyone.